Hello and welcome to Reading Allies Training. My name is Claire Stebbins, and we are so grateful to have you here. First off, thank you so much for serving as a volunteer and investing in our schools and our students. We could not do Reading Allies or any of the work in our community without you, and we are so incredibly grateful. In this training, we are going to go over some general information, what a lesson plan looks like and what to expect, and wrap up with some student tips and tricks. Getting into some general information first. The first is attendance. We do ask that you attend all 10 weeks of the program. It is really important for our students that they have consistency, but we also know that things pop up where a volunteer must be absent. If you are going to be absent, please let your volunteer coordinator know as soon as possible so they can secure a substitute volunteer for you. We ask that you also arrive 5 to 10 minutes early each session. This will allow you ample time to look over the lesson plan and be prepared for the day. For your first session, we ask that you also bring your license. This is how you will check into the school system the first day, and subsequent times you will not necessarily need your license and you can just sign in as a visitor. But this is the background check process for many of our schools. All your materials will be provided for you in a binder that will be in your room when you arrive. So you never have to come prepared with anything. We will provide all of that for you with a lesson specifically designed for your student. We ask that all of our volunteers dress in an elementary school appropriate manner. Particularly as we work maybe with college students as volunteers, we ask for no shorts, leggings, crop tops, or off the shoulder t-shirts or tops. We also ask that no shirts contain inappropriate pictures or words or display alcohol or tobacco products. We have had schools ask our volunteers to leave if they are dressed inappropriately, and we do not want that to happen to anyone. We also ask no hats and also that you keep cell phones out of sight. Oftentimes with students, particularly in first, second, and third grade, if they see a phone, they will immediately want to take your phone and get on social media or try Snapchat. And so it's best, if at all possible, that you either leave your phone in the car or keep it in a purse or pocket out of sight and out of mind when you're at the school and working with a student. Also, on a note for school safety, please do not let other people into the school or through side doors. We know all of our volunteers are incredibly polite and want to hold the door for others, but as a school safety precaution, we do ask that the school buzz individual people into the building rather than holding the door and letting other people in. So first, this is what you will receive when you walk into your Reading Allies session as a binder. The cover will have your student's name and the volunteer tutor's name, as you can see here, the student name and the tutor's names. Inside, there will be a zippered pouch that contains all your items needed for the lessons. The lesson plan will be in this front pocket, and then you will have folders that correspond to each of those lessons. You might have an extra pocket in the back of your binder, and this is for the Reading Allies specialists to use only. So we ask that you please do not add anything to that or take any papers out of that additional fifth folder if there is one in your binder. Next, we're going to look over the components of a lesson. First, again, before students arrive, take 10 minutes to review your students' plan and materials. If you have questions, our Reading Allies specialist who wrote the lesson plan for you and your student will be in the room, and they are more than happy to answer any questions. You will work one-on-one with your student for 30 minutes, and you will always be working with your same student unless you're serving as a substitute or there's some students absent and volunteers absent. And in that case, we are so grateful for your flexibility. For some of our returning volunteers, you may notice the lesson plan is a little different this year. In place of a reread, we are doing a 3-minute phonemic awareness section. This is where students are practicing hearing and manipulating sounds and words. As we align with state standards, this is something that we have heard from our teachers and schools as a real need, and we are working together to address it. The second section is a 7-minute phonics section where you will see activities and games that work directly with the student's phonics needs. The next section is a 10-minute text reading where a student will read a new book to you that they have not seen before. And you'll wrap up with a 10-minute writing section where you are reinforcing the lesson components through the writing practice. All in all, the lesson is 30 minutes and goes by quicker than you can imagine. Now we're going to go over some of our lesson components. This is what the Reading Allies lesson plan will look like that will be in the front pocket of your binder. As you can see on the left-hand side, you will have each category broken up for you with the recommended amount of time. First, phonemic awareness at 3 minutes. Next, the phonics at 7 minutes, text reading for 10 minutes, and writing for another 10 minutes. All of your instructions from the specialist will be here included in the middle instruction column. Everything will be spelled out exactly how you should say it and work with your student so there is no thinking or putting together something new on your own as a volunteer. It is all done for you. And a very crucial part of this lesson plan is our tutor comments on the far right-hand side. The tutor comments are what our specialists use to write the next lesson for your student. And so it is crucial that these comments are constructive and allow the specialist to know what your student did well, what they might still need to work on, and any other information that is pertinent for them to design the next lesson with your student. This first section, phonemic awareness, is again a very short 3-minute component. The focus is on giving your student practice in hearing and manipulating sounds and words. And there will be no materials used here. This is only speaking to your student and your student speaking back to you. Please follow the prompt on the card that will be in the front pocket of your binder verbatim. And we will look at what that card is in our next slide. The biggest issue for volunteers is that you'll be saying and hearing the sounds of the letters, not necessarily the letter names. And again, we'll talk more about this here in just a second. This is especially tricky even for some teachers to get right. So please don't worry if it's not perfect the first time or if a specialist comes over and helps work with you and your student through it. It's a new section, again, adjusting to meet the needs of our students. And so we are all going to work on this together. The second section is a 7-minute phonics section, which had been formerly known as our word work. This is to focus on the practice of learning the phonics skills. These activities are specifically tailored to help your student with the phonics skills that they may still be learning and working on. These activities are done with a pencil and paper, should be left in the student's binder, and we ask that you do not write on any of the games or materials unless it is that piece of paper that is provided. If your 7 minutes are up before your student completes the activities, please stop and move on to the next section. After that is our text reading, which was formerly known as our new read. This is a 10-minute section that is focused on self-monitoring and problem-solving unknown words in a new text. A new book will be in the pocket of your folder, and there will be instructions for a brief book introduction on the lesson plan. The student will read the book to you, and you'll provide support if the student is struggling. Please note any of those struggles here in this tutor comment box on the right-hand side. Again, if your 10 minutes are up before your student completes the activity, stop, make a note of what page they might have left on, and move on to the next section. The final section is your writing section. We please ask that you read the sentence to the student and you do not allow the student to see the sentence or to copy the sentence. The student will have a journal in the pocket of their binder. Do not, again, allow the student to copy anything, as these sentences are designed to allow the student to apply the phonics skills from their word work section. And the student should be able to use their knowledge to sound out a word and write it without having to copy. It is really important that students do not skip this section, as it is often the best indicator for our specialist of whether or not the student has mastered the phonics skill and what was done in the lesson throughout. A very important information is that you must cover all 4 components of the lesson every single time. It is totally okay if a student does not master everything in a section. You will note this on your comment section of the plan, and it's important that we keep the time frames consistent since we are only working in 30-minute time blocks. As we move on to the new phonemic awareness section, this is what will be in the card in that first pocket of the folder in your binder. You will read the prompt to your student speaking distinctly, and you will use the letter that is added here or through here to help your student build a new word. So this is what you would say as a volunteer. Say am. Now say am, adding p to the beginning. What new word do you have? And hopefully your student would say Pam. Anytime you see these slash marks, this means that the sound should be sounded out, not spoken. So if you had a P here, that would be P. If you had an M here in between, that would be mm. If you had an L here, that would be and so on and so forth. Going hand in hand with the phonemic awareness section is how important letter sounds are. It is important that our volunteers know how to make the correct letter sounds, especially for that first component, so that you can help your student when they sound out words to make sure they are saying their letters correctly. Letter sounds can be divided into two categories: slow sounds and quick sounds. Slow sounds can be stretched out and held until you run out of breath, like M or mm. Quick sounds, however, cannot be stretched and must be quick or you'll get an unwanted on the end. So for example, the letter B would be a quick p, almost nothing, like a puff of air. However, if I said ba and we were doing the word bat, it might sound like after that B there was a U before the A, and the student might hear bat rather than bat. And we want to make sure we avoid that. There will be helpers in the lesson binder where you can look up your slow sounds and quick sounds. And we absolutely do not expect anybody to have this down perfectly, but our specialists can help. And we just want to make you aware of what a slow sound and a quick sound is as you work with your student to sound out their words. The next thing in your phonics section of your binder will have activities. So you'll be given instructions potentially to help your student learn their letters or words using maybe a memory trace, letter card manipulation, or Elkonin boxes. And so we are going to go through now what those three activities are so that you are prepared if you do see them in your binder. For a memory trace, you are going to write the letter largely on paper while telling your student how to form the letter while pointing to it. To model it, we're going to practice with the lowercase letter b. Lowercase b would be down, around, b. Your student and you are going to trace the letter in the air with your index finger while saying the language previously. Down, around, b. Your student is then going to trace the letter on the table with their index finger while saying down, around, B. Then on the paper, the student is going to write with a pencil while saying down, around, B. Something I like to do is make it fun and go down, around, B. Can you write it real small in here? Down, around, B. For each of these steps, the student needs to practice the letter more than one time, preferably between 5 to 10 times. You can help guide the student's hand to form the letter if necessary. The student must say the language associated with each letter they write or trace the word. Next is letter card manipulation. In your binder, you will see a plastic baggie with letter cards. What you're going to do is open the baggie and arrange all the letters face up in no particular order on the table in front of the student. Feel free to mix them up if that makes it easier. So for this first word, the word is going to be cat. What you're going to do is say, all right, can you help me form the word cat with your letters? Hopefully your student is going to see k, a, cat to form the whole word. Be sure as the student is sounding it out and putting the letters together, they identify each individual sound, such as k, a, t, cat, and then draw their finger through to pull it all together.
For all Conan boxes, you're going to first say the word and then have your student repeat the word. For this example, we are going to use the word cat. After you have said the word and the student has repeated it, have your student count the sounds in the word by holding up a finger for each sound that they hear. So for cat, hopefully your student would recognize k, a, t, cat. That has 3 sounds. Then you're going to have your student place the Elkonin box sheet in front of them with the shaded boxes on top. Then you're going to place a counter for each sound that you've heard or that your student has heard in the small white area underneath the shaded boxes. You're going to put 1 counter per sound that you hear. So for cat, we have 3 counters. Then you're going to have your student say the sounds of the word while pulling a counter into the shaded box above. For example, that would look like a hat. Be sure that once the student has pulled the words and sounds up, they use their pointer finger to trace the word through. Then you may have your student write the letters the sounds make in their journal or on a piece of paper. Have your student once again read the word cat, hat, while running their pointer finger under the word.
Also, in your phonics section, you may see different phonics games that look like these. We have Read a Row, or Find the Leaf, or other sort of path games, and students love these. So this is another thing you may see in your binder in that phonics section. We also in the phonics section have Collect the Dots and Superstar. Superstar, you can play like the card game War, where if you or your student draw a superstar card, they get to add all the cards from your stack or vice versa. The next section is the text reading section, what was previously known as the New Read. In looking at our students' work over the past few years, we discovered that most of our students needed to be taught some basic understanding of how reading works. They have to be directly taught and practice these skills. 6 tips to help your student remember when you are reading with them. Reading always has to make sense. The words cannot be added or skipped. To truly know a word, students must know and remember it every time. If a student doesn't know a word, stop and sound it out. If a word doesn't make sense, help your student stop and fix it. And have your student self check with picture clues, the meaning of the book, and the letters to make sure it is right. Volunteers are always going to read the title, chapter title, and headings to the student. Many times, these titles and headings include harder words that are not in the story and take up too much time for the student to figure out. If there are harder words, including names in the book, especially if they cannot be sounded out, don't spend time on having your student figure it out. If it looks like they do not know the word, tell them and move on. The last section is our writing journal section. Here you will have in the folder, but we ask that you please do not use more than 1 page span, being the left side and the right side in a journal for your student. We only have enough pages for the 20 lessons that students work through throughout the course of the semester. As we stated previously, you are going to read the sentence to your student, and then you're going to have the student repeat it to you. Then you'll have your student write the sentence. Do not show the sentence to the student or have them copy it once again. Encourage your student to write what they can. If they have trouble with a word, have the student use the practice page on the left-hand side to figure it out. Have your student use correct letter formation, spacing, capitalization, and punctuation, please. For some students, you may need to help them write 1 word at a time or what they can remember on their own. Students do not have to keep the entire sentence in their head as they write, but this is what we are working toward eventually. After a word is written, have the student go back and read the sentence so far to determine the next word. The practice page can be used to practice letter formation also. The student will write on the right side page of their journal. We ask that you please do not correct any of the student's work that has been done on the right-hand side of the page. This shows the Reading Ally specialist what the student knows and what they can do on their own. It also helps them guide the planning of the following lesson. The left side page of the journal is used as a practice page for students to practice and correct their errors. This includes, again, letter formation, errors in spelling, etc. When an error is fixed on the practice page, have the student rewrite the sentence correctly on the right side. This is how we can see if the student has taken what they just learned and can write it correctly on their own. There are two different opportunities to help your student with their writing errors. The first is as the student is writing and pauses as if thinking or does not appear to know how to spell a word, go to the practice page. Prompt the student to say the word slowly and listen for the sounds and write what they hear. You can offer your help as needed. Once your student knows how to write the word, have them practice writing it 5 to 10 times on the practice page while encouraging them to write it fast. It is repetitive practice that sets the word in the student's memory. Then have your student go back to the right side of the page and write the word and continue the sentence. You can repeat this each time your student encounters a tricky word in a sentence. If your student is able to write the sentence fairly easily but does make mistakes, make your corrections after the student has finished writing the entire sentence. Tell your student that they made an error or two or three if they made more than one, and ask the student if they can find the error. If not, point it out. You can move over to the practice page and have your student sound out the word, giving them help as needed. Once the student knows how to write the word, have them practice writing it 5 to 10 times on the practice page. Make it a competition. You can encourage them to write it fast. Do the same thing with any other errors. Then again, have your student go back to the right side and write the sentence again, hopefully spelling all words correctly. Again, we ask that you do not skip or fail to get to the writing component. It is the most important section of the lesson designed for their student to practice what they have worked on. And again, please do not let your students see the sentence or copy. If they're copying, they really aren't learning anything, and we want to make sure that they are getting the most that they can out of the lesson plan. As we wrap up talking about student behavior, generally speaking, we really don't have any behavior issues with our students because they are so excited to be there learning with their volunteer. However, if your student does have behaviors that get in the way of learning, they do have to be addressed. The first is student sitting still and focusing. If your student is having some struggles sitting still and focusing on the lesson, stop the lesson every time that the student is not focused and remind them. You can develop a code word or something fun between the two of you that reminds them. I always like to tell my student when we're here at Reading Allies, we sit up straight, tall, and proud, feet flat on the floor, ready to learn. And students sit up straight, tall, and proud, feet on the floor, ready to learn. Since we only have 30 minutes, we also ask for no bathroom breaks with students. Oftentimes, this is an indicator that what they're doing in their lesson is challenging and they are trying to get away from it as they do in their classroom occasionally. We also ask for no rewards, stickers, food, candy of any kind that are brought in, as we do group rewards towards the end of the semester as a whole. Praise is the number one way to overcome any negative behavior with your student. Let them know when they have worked hard, when your student has done something well, or they've really improved. Make your praise as specific as possible so your student always knows what to come back to as a good, positive behavior. Also, to wrap up, if your student tells you something or you suspect abuse, neglect, bullying, or something just seems really off with your student, please tell the Reading Ally specialist so that it can be reported and dealt with appropriately. In closing, please remember that if you have to be absent, to let your volunteer coordinator know as soon as possible so they can find you a substitute volunteer. Please arrive early to preview the lesson before your students get there while dressing in elementary school appropriate clothing. Watch your time and make sure you get to all 4 components of the lesson. Do not leave out writing. And please write constructive comments in the box on the lesson plan so that our specialists know how to plan your students' next lesson. Have fun, and please know that the school, your student, their parents, and all of us at Reading Allies are so grateful and appreciative of your time and know you are helping our community be a better place for all. Thank you so much, and we're so glad to have you in our schools.